Coming up next on Tech News Weekly, it's me and Mikah Sargent. We are joined by Paris Martineau from The Information. She talks about how Amazon gets its FAA approval this week for its delivery drones. Don't worry, those drones are nowhere close to flying into your skies. Also, we have a hands-on with the new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 2, care of Hayato Huseman from Android Central. We talk about how Apple just announced offer codes to get more iOS users supporting their developers, and we discuss how technology enables everyone to visit their escape pods right now. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Weekly. Tech News Weekly is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 149, recorded Thursday, September 3rd, 2020.
This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology's Advanced Technology Center is like no other testing and research lab, with more than $500 million of equipment, including OEMs like Dell EMC, and it's virtual, so you can access it 24/7. To learn more and get insights into all that it offers, go to wwt.com/twit. Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am back, and I am Mikah Sargent.
He's back. I'm Jason Howell. I'm here again.
Yes, and I am happy about that. It's not like a trade-off situation. We don't have to worry about that. Right. That's good.
I think I'm going to be out next week. I'm just letting you know now. I have nothing going on, but I'll just
let me write that down. Well, you know what? It is time to just get this show a-rolling. And the first thing, hold on, I think I hear something. It sounds like there might be a buzzing outside of my window. Oh my goodness, it's an Amazon delivery drone. That's right, folks. Amazon is one step closer to completely putting me out of my misery for such horrible jokes, but they are also one step closer to letting folks get their deliveries via drone, because they have received approval from the FAA for drone delivery. I am excited to say we have Paris Martineau from The Information here to talk to us about it and, Amazon in general. Welcome, Paris.
Thanks so much for having me, Mikah.
Yeah. So let's start with this. When we talk about clearances and approvals and other words, depending on the group, depending on the agency or the organization, that can mean different things. When the FDA clears something, it doesn't necessarily mean as much as an actual approval. So when it comes to the FAA, let's talk about what FAA approval means for Amazon and its drones, kind of an overview of it and what that actual substance, what are we getting out of this?
Yeah. So, I think the first thing to know here is that this doesn't mean that there's going to be drones from Amazon buzzing outside your window starting next week. What it really means is that Amazon has received approval to be able to test its drones in customer delivery situations and be able to fly them with packages beyond the visual line of sight, which is a very important terminology in the drone and FAA world. Previously, without this certification, the program was kind of frozen because you were not allowed to essentially take the drone anywhere beyond where its operator could see, which obviously kind of causes some problems for the whole unmanned delivery vehicle sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense, because I think that, that distinction that you're kind of talking about there is incredibly important when we talk about, me, if I were to go buy a drone tomorrow, which don't worry, I'm not going to, but if I were and I'm flying it around, I've got to be able to see where it is and move it around in that space. But obviously, Amazon if it wants to do this delivery service, it doesn't really help if it's got to hire people that are using this controller to drive the drone around into different places and watching it as it goes around. So this is a little bit farther along with the process, but do we know I know Amazon is a little bit unclear about the true state of its drone program, but if you had to sort of read the tea leaves and guess, how long do you think it is before I could actually order something from Amazon? And, noted that I'm here in California near a big city where Amazon typically does these programs first. So other places may take a little bit longer, but are we 5 years? Are we 4? Are we 15? How long until I've got that drone buzzing outside my window?
So I think this is actually the most interesting part of the drone announcement is that, let's say, best case scenario, albeit I'm obviously reading the tea leaves here, as you said, but from what I have gathered, speaking to sources and whatnot, it doesn't seem like even in an ideal world that this drone program is not going to be used to have deliveries happening in places like New York, where I am right now, or California, outside big cities. I think it's important to view this announcement kind of within the context of Amazon as a whole. Right now, they're on this massive push to expand delivery stations. They've opened over 100 in the last 6 months. They're going to have more than 400 by 2021. And delivery stations are these little post offices, essentially, but just for Amazon packages that service everyone in a 30-minute drive radius. And it makes it so that Amazon can hire contractors or prime people to bring your packages. But that will work for most cities and towns and populated areas, but where that won't work is sparsely populated regions or rural areas. That's never going to be able to be serviced in that way. So from what I've gathered, it seems that Amazon ideally would end up using the drone program to kind of make up for the gaps in its delivery network that are specifically in these kind of rural, hard to reach areas. Because right now, the only way that it's going to be able to reach those is to pay the postal service, who has to deliver packages to every house, even if it's a 40-acre farm in the middle of Montana. But Amazon would prefer to be able to control it by itself. So if it could use a drone, it'd be much more cost efficient to reach all of these sparse places.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about drone safety. One of the things that kind of intimidates me about a drone, I can remember a fellow co-host here on the network, Ant Pruitt, had a drone with a camera on it, and he was kind of showing it off and testing it out. And those propellers get to spinning, and they just are very frightening. Did the FAA's regulations and clearance involve the considerations of the drone in terms of how it impacts humans on the ground? Or is the FAA's clearance more just solely about the airspace? And if that is the case, then is there some sort of agency called, I don't know, the Federal Finger Agency that is making sure that we don't slice our fingers whenever the drone comes to us? Kind of, what about that part of the safety considerations? Does the FAA have anything to do with that?
Yeah, so I mean, Amazon originally announced its intentions to launch a drone program in 2013, I believe, and it said, oh, it would be up and running within like 5 years. The reason why it's taken so long to even get this first step of approval is that the approval process is very long and complicated specifically for these sort of reasons, because there are so many possible safety concerns involved from both a people on the ground as well as airspace aspect. So in order to get this kind of first level of approval, Amazon has had to go through rigorous safety testing with its drones and just the whole program as a whole. This clearance means that they're going to be able to continue doing the testing, but in the realm of deliveries to actual customers. So that'll kind of provide this second testing ground to double check that all the things that seemed safe in these more controlled situations are actually going to be safe in these uses.
Gotcha. Sort of going from an alpha stage to a beta stage. The other thing that I'm wondering is, where does Amazon fit in the larger other companies that are doing or are looking into drone delivery, or I think of there was a company not too long ago that was talking about drone delivery for medications to rural or to places that otherwise would not be able to be serviced. Is Amazon the first company in the United States to get this far? Are there other kind of drone? I know that there are other drone clearances, but in terms of actual delivery, where does Amazon come in, and are there other companies that we should be keeping our eye out for, both sort of online and in the skies when it comes to drones?
Yeah, you should definitely be keeping your eyes towards the skies when it comes to two companies at least. Wing, which is owned by Alphabet, aka Google, was the first kind of drone delivery company in the U.S. to receive any sort of FAA approval for commercial deliveries, as well as UPS last October received the same kind of approval for the FAA. But the process is just very long and complicated for all of the companies involved, even Amazon and these two others that have received this first stage of approval, just because the FAA has really never had to deal with something like this before. And the complexities of having unmanned aircraft that, say, will need to be updated or have software changes really doesn't jive well with their older model of regulatory approval. So they've kind of had to rebuild new structures and systems to even get this far. And that's kind of been part of what's slowing down the process. Although hopefully things will get easier as they are streamlined.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to reiterate what you mentioned there with Alphabet Wing getting FAA approval. That happened last April, 2019, not 2020. So that happened, more than a year ago. And at this stage, as far as I know anyways, we're not really seeing Alphabet Wing drones flying around in the sky yet, which tells me there's a lot of stuff that has to happen post this step. What are some of those hurdles that Amazon's going to have to overcome before they can finally do this?
I mean, even if you just look at it from a simple kind of logistical perspective, putting aside the regulatory hurdles and whatnot, I mean, these drones that Amazon was approved for can only really carry up to 5 pounds at a time. And given safety concerns and just the general likelihood of people, if you're flying a drone over a city, to maybe, I don't know, hit it with a slingshot or something. I feel like in cities that's going to cause a lot more issues. There are very limited places where this sort of technology can be safely tested, and very limited amounts of things that can be delivered because it's under 5 pounds. And there's not that many use cases where it makes financial sense to, okay, yeah, let's use our very expensive drone program that's in its infancy to do that instead of just handing your envelope off to the postal service. But I think that something that I find very important or helpful to keep in mind when thinking about these sort of programs coming from Amazon is that Amazon's a company that, when it comes to stuff like drones or delivery bots or healthcare, things like that, they are a company that is thinking like 10 or 20 years in advance with almost all of their decisions. So these moves that they're making now aren't possibly going to be something we see in the next year or two having like real world noticeable effects, but it's going to be something that maybe in a decade or two will have a huge impact on some way that they're doing business.
That makes sense. Paris Martineau, I want to thank you so much for joining us today to talk about Amazon and its drones. And I guess I'll have to wait a while to take to the skies with an Amazon delivery drone. But
hey, you can always get your own and slap a package to the top.
That's fair.
That's true. Hey, Mikah, how about this? I'm going to get a drone and I'm going to attach something to it like a burrito or something, and I'll deliver it to you. Is that okay? Will that fill the void? All right.
Yes, it will. Thank you very much. Both in my heart and in my stomach. So that's, a twofer. Thank you. Paris Martineau, if folks want to follow you online, where can they go to do that?
Go to Twitter. I'm at Paris Martineau on Twitter, and subscribe to the information if you want more scoops on Amazon and whatnot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Paris.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. WWT began building their Advanced Technology Center, that's ATC, 10 years ago, and it has grown exponentially. It's like no other testing and research facility. The lab contains more than $500 million in equipment from hundreds of OEMs and key partners ranging from heavyweights like Dell, EMC, VMware, and Intel to emerging disruptors like Equinix. WWT is a trusted partner who stays with you over the years. Many of their customers have been with them for over a decade because they know WWT is where they can go to get the answers they need to make sure their business runs right. Their ATC is an incubator for IT innovation and offers on-demand and schedulable labs like Dell EMC, VxRail, Data Protection Central, and IDPA. These labs represent the newest advances in primary storage. There are hundreds of labs to explore, including multi-cloud, hyperconverged infrastructure, networking, secondary storage, data analytics, AI, and more. Learn about products before you launch. WWT's engineers use these environments to quickly spin up proofs of concept and pilots using the ATC lab environment so customers can confidently select the best solutions. In many cases, this reduces concept time from months to weeks, which increases speed to market. They offer Lab as a Service, a dedicated lab space within the ATC. Here, customers can perform programmatic testing using the vast technology ecosystem that WWT has already built. And it's virtual, so you can take full advantage of ATC's unique benefits anywhere in the world 24/7. WWT engineers work in their labs every day, beta testing new equipment and building reference architectures and custom integrations to help their customers make decisions and see results faster and with much less investment. WWT has launched a digital platform encompassing the ATC ecosystem. This ever-evolving platform creates a multiplier effect of knowledge, speed, and agility anytime, anywhere around the world for their customers and partners. Get full access to articles and case studies, hands-on labs, and other tools that make the difference in today's fast-paced world. To learn more about WWT, the ATC, and to become a member of their growing community, go to wwt.com/twit to create an account and gain access to their on-demand labs today. WWT simplifies the complex. That's wwt.com/twit. WWT, delivering business and technology outcomes around the world.
Thank you, WWT. All right. So earlier this week, Samsung held another event. They did this almost a month ago for the Galaxy Note series and a few other devices. This time it's Unpacked Part 2. Well, it should have been Part 2. It was Part 2. But this is Tuesday morning. Florence, Ion, and I watched along as they basically spilled out all of the details on the already announced Galaxy Z Fold 2. And then very soon after that, we started to see everybody popping up online, everybody in the journalist space anyways, the Android tech journalist space, with a device in hand. So obviously an NDA had lifted, devices started to reach everybody's hands, and Hayato Huseman has the Z Fold 2 in his hands. He's, of course, writing for AndroidCentral.com. Hayato, it's good to see you.
It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for hopping on today. So before we get to the second one, let's talk a little bit about the first one because there were issues. And we all kind of already know all the stories with the first Galaxy Fold, the ingress, the stuff getting behind the display, all the display issues, the hinge, all that stuff. Did you actually spend any time with the first one? And what were your thoughts then? Because this was really at the beginning of this like foldable race.
Yeah, so I spent about 24 hours with the original Fold. I didn't get too much time with it just because we had to send it to a different writer on the site. But I got to spend just enough time with it to sort of, get a feel for the physical hardware, the build quality, and things like that. Which, I mean, right off the bat is a massive improvement on the Z Fold 2. Not to get too ahead of myself, but this is it's remarkable just how much they've been able to improve it in the last year.
It's interesting because I've had the Note 20 Ultra for almost 2 weeks, and I just did a review on it, and I've had this as my daily driver for a couple of weeks now. And I see you holding the Z Fold 2, and I mean, obviously, all of these devices are following the same design language, but on my small screen,
sure.
I swear you have a Note, but you don't. You have the Z Fold 2. What are some of these changes that Samsung has made here? Because obviously, they had a lot to correct, and they did correct some of this even with the initial device prior to public release, the press got a certain version of it that just went horribly wrong. They made some changes and then they released it to everyone. So this is almost like their third iteration, if you think of it that way. What are some of the changes, the really meaningful changes that you've noticed in your time with it so far?
Well, so one of the big things they changed with the Z Fold 2 was they basically redesigned the hinge with this sort of sweeper technology, they're calling it, that's basically based on some of the technology behind vacuum cleaners. And that essentially just sort of serves to keep debris from really getting into the screen and damaging that when you fold the phone shut. From a user standpoint, the biggest difference to me is the fact that the hinge can now open and hold its position at basically any angle, where the original fold, once you had it past 90 degrees, it sort of wanted to just shut itself. And that lets you do some really unique things with this phone, where you can sort of prop it up like a laptop against a table. You can do all sorts of things with what Samsung is calling flex mode, where essentially when you have the phone folded at any given point, it automatically shifts certain hardware or software elements to better accommodate that different form factor. So they've made a lot of changes with the hinge, and overall it just feels much more rigid, much more solid. It gives you a lot of confidence when you're opening and closing the phone, versus the original sort of felt like you were breaking it every time you adjusted the hinge at all.
Yeah, and for something with a mechanical backbone like that, you don't want to feel like you're breaking your device every time you're doing something that you have to do with it in order to use it. So that's
absolutely,
obviously that was a good decision. And it also kind of makes sense, like I've got a laptop in front of me, the idea of having like something flat on the surface. I don't know if you'd necessarily use that size, or maybe you have already, with the bottom part being a keyboard and the top part being a display. Like that seems like the easy go-to, like, oh, I totally use it like that. But is it too small to actually pull that off with any accuracy or enjoyment?
I think so, yeah. My friend Michael Fisher did exactly that. As soon as he got the phone, he sort of put it into a laptop mode and typed on it. It's a little cramped for me, but what I find really works very well with this is if you're wanting to take, say, like a selfie, or even if you want to take a photo with the rear cameras, you can do that using the flex mode, propping it up on a surface, and that's pretty neat. Of course, one of the other big changes they've made with the phone was expanding that cover display. So now it actually takes up the entire front panel, where before there were these giant bezels up top and bottom that sort of made that screen more or less, I don't want to say useless, but it was a lot less usable. Yeah. And so with that, now you can actually, when you're taking a photo, there's a new UI element where you can show the viewfinder preview on the cover display itself. And so that way, if you're taking photos of a friend, or even if you're taking photos of yourself, it makes it a lot easier to frame things, which is kind of neat.
Not one thing that you probably got to get in the habit of is telling the person you're taking a photo of, don't look at the screen, look at the camera.
Right, absolutely.
We live in that world, just working in video in general. I could do my entire episode looking at the little preview over here, and everybody watching would know exactly that I'm not looking at them. So keep that in mind. Little tip there. One thing that comes to mind when I saw you kind of have it in that mode to take a picture, like set it on a table, realize that the display is facing down. The Note 20 Ultra did not ship with a display protector, with a screen protector, like the Note 20 or the S20 Ultra did. Does this have a screen protector on that display so that if you do that, you're not scratching the heck out of it?
It does. So there's a screen protector on both sides, the cover display and one on the inner display. It's much more important on the inner display, of course, because that's the more sort of fragile ultra thin glass technology. And I've just had a run-in with in my unboxing video I published. First thing I did was peel off that screen protector on the inner display. Samsung was quick to let me know you absolutely should not do that. They put a warning against doing that on the packaging inside. So it is sort of integral to the protection of that inner display. With the outer cover, though, because it's protected by Gorilla Glass Victus, that screen protector, as far as I'm aware, is really sort of just there as a nice add-on that's factory pre-installed. But that one you should be able to remove, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, although I would recommend not if you can help it. Because, I mean, literally, I've had this Note 20 Ultra for 2 weeks now, and I already have little scratches on it. I've been pretty darn careful with this thing. But scratches happen, right? Glass is glass. It's just going to happen. So
yeah.
Leave it on. You're probably okay. Are you saying that you actually did peel the inside screen protector off?
I did, yeah. So with the first gen Fold, first gen Fold, it was sort of that was actually sort of part of the display. So if you peel off that inner protector, you're sort of ripping the screen off of the phone. It's not quite the case on this one, but you're still not meant to peel it off at all. You should definitely leave that on the phone.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to be clear on that. How does that interior display feel? Because I know on a lot of these, on almost all of these foldable displays, it kind of has, because of the actual display material that is foldable. Like I realize this is an ultra thin layer of glass, but does it kind of have that kind of plasticky, tacky kind of quality to it?
Just a bit. I mean, especially with that screen protector that I again peeled off, it did have that sort of like a plasticky feel on it. Once you use the screen without it, it's a bit less plasticky, but this still doesn't quite feel like the glass that you would use on, say, the Note 20 Ultra. I don't think it's a downside. The screen it doesn't feel like you're going to break it if you press too hard on it or anything. They do warn against doing that as well, but it feels good overall. The one thing I will say is that if you run your finger across the screen, you can feel that crease still. But as plenty of other people have mentioned, you really sort of don't see that crease when you're looking dead on at the phone. So it sort of just becomes an afterthought at that point.
So you accidentally, I mean, I don't want to double down on this because I'm not talking about you specifically, but anybody.
Sure.
I know I have a habit of anytime I see some little film on something, I want to peel it off. So you peel it off. Does Samsung have a place you can go online and buy a new screen protector? Do you have to send it in to them? Are there third-party screen protectors available for this? What does one do if one accidentally or purposefully but unintentionally peels off the screen protector that's there?
To my knowledge, they don't sell a separate one because you're really not meant to take that one off. What they do offer is a one-time sort of reduced price screen repair if you were to damage the phone within its 1-year warranty cycle. So if you do damage the phone, they're offering it's $149 for a one-time screen repair. After that, they haven't specified a price, but it's definitely going to be more than that.
Interesting. And what also comes to mind is just the fact that even if there's the tiniest fragment of a crease down the center, like slapping a screen protector on it anyways, you're always going to end up with a little bit of an air gap there if it's not fitting flush entirely. So yeah, big time recommendation to keep that thing on there if you want it looking as good as possible. How about the software itself? Google has done a lot in Android 10 and now Android 11, although I realize this ships with 10. It'll get 11, but it's shipping with 10. But Android has a lot of thought put into it as far as these foldable form factors are concerned, things like handoff and scaling and all that kind of stuff. How does that work from an experiential standpoint when you're using this device? You go from your front screen to the inside, or you grow something from one screen to both screens on the inside. Is it seamless? Is there jerkiness at all in the experience? What's your thought there?
So that was one of the first things that I was very excited to try for myself. And so far, it seems like almost every app will automatically rescale when you're using it on the cover display. You open the phone, it resizes just perfectly, which is fantastic. I have run into a couple of apps that don't do that I use every single day. So in particular, Instagram and Adobe Lightroom. They don't scale for the inner display at all. So what you get instead is this sort of awkward pillar boxing on each side of this, I guess, sort of 16:9-ish aspect ratio app. But for the most part, every app does scale exactly as you would expect. What I have noticed with certain apps like Slack that have separate interfaces for sort of Android tablet versions of their apps is the Fold will actually switch between the two. So if you're using Slack on the cover display, it has that sort of new interface that they introduced a few months ago with these sliding panels. If you open the phone, while you're using Slack, it actually switches back to that older design because I guess Slack just hasn't updated its tablet version of the app. So there's some design differences there as far as the interface of those kinds of apps are concerned, but every app, with few exceptions, works exactly as you would expect. And of course, you can run split screen apps if you want to, and basically have two full-sized apps side by side, which works really, really well. I'm a big fan of that sort of look and feel. You can kind of see it right there with two apps open at the same time. It's like having two, I guess, 21:9 apps side by side, and I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can set little presets so that it pulls up, a combination of apps that you like to use side by side together on that. I think the side switch functionality as well. So that's nice. The cameras. Now, I love the cameras, particularly for video on the Note 20 Ultra and then the S20 Ultra. And the actual image cameras are good too. How do they compare here? Because I know, this really is a foldable that's a premium foldable. Other foldables that have released have had other trade-offs in order to either get the price down or just like, well, the reason you're getting it is because it's a foldable and the other stuff isn't as important.
Right.
Here it seems like Samsung's really saying, no, this is a foldable and it's a premium smartphone, so you're getting all this other stuff. What about the cameras?
So you shouldn't expect the Z Fold 2's cameras to be, quite on the same level as the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. You're not getting that 108 megapixel gigantic sensor. You're not getting the sort of super resolution zoom. But what you do get is three 12 megapixel cameras that so far in my testing, I haven't gotten to spend a lot of time with the cameras, but the photos I have taken have definitely impressed me. I would say the main sensor in particular is very similar to on the standard Galaxy Note 20, which is the same sort of 12 megapixel resolution and everything. It looks like a typical Samsung camera. It's very sharp. It's very contrast heavy. It's very vibrant. The telephoto camera is just going to get to 2x optically, and I believe you can push that to 10x with digital zoom. But again, you're not going to get that sort of space zoom tech that you'll get on the S20 Ultra or the Note 20 Ultra.
The 50x zoom, which is really just a curiosity more than anything that you're ever going to like hang up on a wall or whatever. But it's neat to play around with every once in a while, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, Samsung itself has called this, explicitly says this is a luxury device. So they're owning up to the fact that this is a $2,000 device. This is firmly in the camp of luxury. Can foldables like this find a place in this kind of coronavirus world that we're in right now, where people are saving their money, to a certain degree? And I kind of felt like that a little bit as far as the Note 20 Ultra is concerned. Like, amazing phone, poor timing. And obviously Samsung couldn't have planned it that way. It's not like Samsung would have known, but it's an unfortunate byproduct of where we are right now. How do you think that's going to influence the Z Fold 2?
So $2,000 is definitely a lot to spend on a phone, and like you said, especially during coronavirus situations. Of course, you can split this onto your monthly bill through your carriers if you want to. It's available in all three major U.S. carriers, so I think it's about $80 or so a month, which is quite a bit to add onto your bill. I think you're really going to have to very much want to buy into the foldable experience to really justify this cost. They are trying to sort of add some luxury features that sort of pad out that price. So you get this Z Premier concierge service with the phone that gives you sort of bonus perks like a 1-year membership at exclusive golf clubs and Michelin meals delivered to your door, which I guess helps make this a better value for the right kind of person. But this is definitely not going to be like an everyman's phone. What I am hoping is that eventually the price will come down, as things often do with Samsung's phones, in the coming months or maybe even a year from now, to where maybe this phone is available for $1,200, $1,300, whether it's refurbished or used or whatever the case may be. Because I really think this needs to get into the hands of more people. That I think the more people that get to use a phone like this, the more excited they'll get for foldables, and of course then foldables will get to thrive a bit more as they get a wider user base.
And who knows, maybe eventually Google and Android users will care more about tablets running Android when there is
Here's
a breakout
hoping.
device that, yeah, exactly. Because that's certainly not the case right now. Hayato
it's not.
Huseman from from Android Central. Really appreciate you coming on the show today to talk about your time with this device. And of course, this is all based on your post yesterday. It was kind of a first look unboxing, which tells me you've probably got a big review in store. When do you plan on releasing something like that?
So right now we've got the review is scheduled for Wednesday of next week. So so long as nothing crazy happens with the phone, no huge fiascos that cause Samsung to take the phones back like they did last year, Wednesday should be the day. Right
on. Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to it. Enjoy your phone while you have it. And who knows, maybe you'll buy one when you're all done with it.
You know, I might. It's so nice.
I can
just
tell.
keep that screen protector on
it.
it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least it's the review device that you remove the screen protector on. At least there's that. Hayato, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'll see you around.
All right, it is time for our stories of the week. And the first one, the one I have for you, is all about a new addition that, and that's addition, not edition, that Apple is working on for subscription offer codes. So Apple, for quite a while, has offered developers the ability to send out codes for free downloads of their apps. But this would only work for apps that, you know, came in at a specific price, $4.99, $3.99, $1.99, $99, etc. Basically, you would get the app for free. But if you added a subscription in-app purchase to your app, there was no way to go about giving out subscriptions outside of like creating gift cards that were equivalent to that amount of money for your Apple ID and then having them added that way. Not good, not clean, not good. And so now Apple has said that developers should get ready for a new way to offer subscriptions using offer codes. I'm what is the word I'm looking for? I am registered as an Apple developer so that I have access to the betas and things like that. And I have a little automation set up to where anytime a new post is posted on Apple's developer blog, I get a text message letting me know with a link to it. So I was, I think, cooking food yesterday and got this notification. I thought, ooh, this is interesting because this is the first time that they have obviously done that. So Apple lets you create subscription offers of different times. You can provide these different pricing options with subscription offers. There's free, meaning a subscriber can access your subscription for free for a specific duration. So you can say, with this code, you get 1 month free of your subscription, and then it will renew for $4.99 per month. So that means that the subscription automatically starts and they will not get billed until after it is all over. That, you think about it, developers who want to let users try out their app and then offer them a way to eventually go about adding themselves to a subscription. Pay as you go is another kind of offer. So the subscriber pays a discounted price each billing period for a specific duration. So $1.99 per month for 3 months, and then $9.99 per month. So once that duration of the 3 months is over, it goes up to the full price. And so if you want to let somebody try out an app, but you still would like to make some money, this is a good option for you, where then they can kind of be convinced, okay, this actually is good. I've done it for 6 months at $1.99 or 3 months at $1.99. I want to go ahead and subscribe fully. And then the pay up front option, where a subscriber pays a one-time price for a specific duration. So $9.99 upfront for the first 6 months of a subscription, with a standard renewal price of $39.99 per year. So once the duration is over, they'll be billed at the standard renewal price. So that way you can give them, plenty of time to try out the app for the first 6 months. It's kind of a buy-in, and then after that they can go up to that full price. So I think this is wonderful because developers are kind of independent developers specifically are in many ways being pushed into a model that is not sustainable where and they're trying to come out of it right now. And this is where it gets kind of tough. So I kind of want to explain how this works. So when the App Store was first announced and came out and the first iPhone, and of course it was a little bit after the first iPhone was announced that the App Store came out, there was this idea that apps should be kind of small, easy to use, not too many features, and therefore did not cost a whole lot of money. So you would get them for free or you would get them for, 99 cents or something like that. Well, that is not if you look at how involved and how in-depth the process is to make an app, you begin to understand why even $4.99 is a ridiculously inexpensive cost for an app. And so for the longest time, developers kind of had to exist in that free or very, 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 very inexpensive price. And Apple introduced some new tools that allowed developers to, if they weren't going to charge that amount up front, be able to charge that amount over time. Now that developers are taking advantage of that, there's so much blowback because users have been used to this model of very inexpensive apps for a long period of time. One of my favorite apps, it's called Deliveries, and it is a delivery tracking app. You put in your Amazon order numbers and your UPS tracking numbers, USPS tracking numbers, FedEx tracking numbers, all the different tracking numbers, and it will keep those up to date. It'll notify you when something's changed about them, give you a map to show you sort of where where the package has gone and where it is currently, et cetera. And Deliveries announced a new version of the app and with it a subscription model. And there was so much blowback because people are not used to that. But when you think about it, these developers who are making this their livelihood need a way to make money off of the apps that they're creating when they're releasing updates all the time and bug fixes and things like that. So Apple has kind of been pushed for a while to do this, offering a way to better let users try out an app and then get the subscription cost from them versus sort of a free app that, well, if you want to, at some point you can go in and choose to add the subscription. This is more, it sort of happens with less friction. And that's good because that means that you're going to, any little bit of friction that gets added to a process immediately cuts back the number of people who are actually going to go through with a thing. So I'm pumped about this because there's so many developers out there who are making incredible apps and who are trying to just survive, and it's just a struggle. And I'm sure, Jason, you have experience with, a family member asks for advice on a suggestion on an app that they should get. I need an app that does blank. And then you have this one that you love and it costs you $2.99 or something like that. And you tell them and they're like, oh, it costs money. Suddenly it's just all out the window. Mm-hmm. And you go, it's $2.99. And so I have this ongoing sort of speech that I give, sort of monologue I give. I just have in mind that every developer has like 6 pet chickens, and the developer takes care of these chickens, and these chickens have got to eat. And the only way for the chickens to eat is if you buy their dadgum app. So save a chicken or 6 and just make the purchase of the app. It's, $1.99, $2.99, and I'm not going to do the coffee thing. It's less than a cup of coffee, right? But I will say that it's such a small amount of money for, you would be surprised the amount of work that is required. So this is exciting, and I hope that it leads to not only better sustainability for developers, but also better apps as a whole, because developers will be able to afford to invest more in their apps if people are subscribing to them.
Yes, really is about educating consumers and giving a reasonable set of options for people, because like you said, we've as consumers, and especially in the app ecosystem on smartphones and these kinds of devices, we've gotten very used to this idea of free. and to the point to where most people, I'm sure that most people who have used a smartphone for the last decade, there are a lot of people out there who have maybe ever bought 0, 1, or 2 apps, like actually spent money on apps, probably not that, compared to all the other apps that they use. And so overcoming that is a real challenge. We, on All About Android, it's a like almost a mantra at this point. Anytime we're talking about an app that has a fee associated with it, we say support your devs, because that's what you're doing. You're supporting your devs. They created this thing for you. Sure, the ecosystem has been built around free, and that's a really nice kind of luxury that everybody has enjoyed. But when you get down to it, it's it's time, it's money, it's blood, sweat, and tears, all that stuff. In order for the person or the small team that created this thing to continue to put food on the table or to make the life out of this. So really, when you look at it that way, and also when you compare it to like the PC Mac paradigm, prior to smartphones, I would say a lot of people were very used to buying software for your computer. Now, there's a lot of free stuff out there as well, but for decades with personal computers, the model was that, these big apps that you rely on, you're paying money, and you're paying a lot of money for them. Mm-hmm. And that's a realization that there is a lot of work that goes into it and that has actual value for you. And then the smartphone came along, and for whatever reason, we just got really used to not doing that. And it really doesn't make any sense, because by the way, we rely on these tiny little computers in our pockets and all of the things that these apps that people have made allow us to implement into our lives. So it makes a whole lot of sense. Support your devs, and this is one way to do it.
Support your devs and their chickens.
All right, so I've got a story of the week here, and this is an interesting read. I was up last night and kind of actually doing some research for this show, and I came across a piece by Douglas Rushkoff on OneZero over Medium. The title is "The Privileged Have Entered Their Escape Pods." And I've just kind of noticed ever since reading that like my mind has been going on this idea. It talks a lot about things related, of course, to the pandemic, how we're all kind of living as a result of it, and this kind of new world order of, all of us being holed up in our homes and relying on technology. And, it kind of points to, he's written other works that really talk a lot about like tech-minded individuals with a lot of money, the like CEOs of these huge tech behemoths, and their plans to kind of like create these bunkers in case the world goes to complete hell and they need to escape. They have the money, they have the capability, they have the knowledge, they just have the ability to protect and shield themselves from everything that the majority of us do not. So they're creating these bunkers to live out their life in the case of a catastrophic event, that sort of thing. So they're escape pods, as Douglas puts it. He calls them escape fantasies. He says solar-powered hilltop resorts, chains of defensible floating islands, robotically tilled eco farms, all these things that, like, to you and me and the majority of people on planet Earth, we would not have the resources to do that. They have the money, they have the time, they have the technology to pull it all off. But here we are in this like world, this pandemic state of being, and we find ourselves, based on what he's describing here, doing kind of the same, but in a very different way. We have 4 walls. We have food and grocery delivery that kind of leaves our items on the steps, and that's to minimize personal contact. We've got distance learning, Zoom meetings, so we don't have to go into the office. Some people are getting, VR systems so that they can mimic real life interaction. Just a few examples. But he writes that what we're doing, kind of comes naturally as we're living in the digital age. He says that we can design our own personal reality so meticulously, these are his words, that existential threats are simply removed from the equation. And how technology really enables us to go it alone, right? Like, I've got my family here, and I've got the technology that enables me to live in these 4 walls with my family and not have to worry about all the unsettling and uncomfortable things that are happening outside of my escape fantasy. You know what I mean? It's just a really fascinating read that really got my mind kind of going. He points out that it becomes possible to kind of ignore or forget all the many ways that the world is suffering. Right now, there's a whole lot of suffering happening in this world because, well, we have it pretty good inside of these walls. And for a lot of people, his point is a lot of people are making these changes now, yes, out of necessity, but also kind of like okay with that. It's almost like, well, here's my excuse. Here's my reason to pull off this like secluded lifestyle or this secluded life where I can retract from the real world and just live inside of my perfectly managed and maintained bubble of technology where the playlists always play the shows that I want to watch and the games, you name it. It was just a really fascinating read, and I highly recommend anyone who's kind of like struck by this theory, go check it out. But it got me. I will say it got me.
Yeah, and I think I like it as a sort of an observation of such rather than any sort of value judgment.
Totally. Yes.
And that is, it's something to think about. And I think more than that, it is kind of it's a bit of a way for us to look even at ourselves and see the, perhaps it's a thinner bubble or a smaller bubble, but there are certain bubbly things that we are also doing. I should speak for myself that I am also doing. And there's a certain level of privilege to being here, working from home for the shows that we do and having that ability versus putting myself in harm's way and being able to order groceries online, to have a video call with my doctor, and to, not be concerned about where the next meal is coming from and things like that. If it's not a value judgment of the more privileged, it is at the very least a bit of a reflection that one gets to take and sort of see where they fit in that hierarchy.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now I'm going to be thinking about it for sure.
Yeah, it definitely had me very introspective and kind of thinking about the choices that we have made, here in this house over the past 6 months, which 6 months, holy cow, half a year, here we are. And
God, has it been 6 months?
Realizing equally that a lot of the choices that we've made because the situation requires us to, and we don't have a choice, but also kind of like what kind of control do we have, and are we ever making decisions because we feel like we don't have control when we actually do? It's just much more convenient to do this.
That,
you know what I mean?
That is a big thing because I think I might have even been on this show, but one of the first things that our brains, when your brain is stressed out, when your brain is experiencing trauma, one of the first things that it wants to do is seek out a way to find control of a situation. And it is because that lack of control that exists around you is a traumatic experience and does lead to more stress. And so your brain tries to find a way to help you alleviate that. And so you look for ways to control. And, it's funny, haha, but also it is true that there are not a small number of people who have taken their darker hair and bleached it bright white blonde in this pandemic. Like I said, it's kind of a meme at this point, but it is a very visible, very clear example of the psychology of trauma in terms of a lack of control and trying to find control. I have control over my hair. This is a thing I can do and have an outcome that I have control over. So this is a thing I will do. Shaving your face, if you keep facial hair, shaving your face, or if you don't keep facial hair, growing out a beard, changing, styles, all of these things that we, at normal times may not have the desire to do because we feel some level of control over our lives. These are things that we can do, that we do have control over. And so when you take that and you take it to the extreme, I have the ability, if I wanted to, pay, $50 to buy a bleaching kit. But when you take that to the extreme, the privilege that they're talking about here, they have the ability to gain control over their lives entirely by buying into or renting out or whatever it happens to be a safe space that they have complete and utter control over. They're still doing that psychological tick, but they just have more resources available to take it to the extreme. And so frankly, they are reducing that trauma to an even greater extent by doing so. But unfortunately, as we know, just exercising control in this artificial way does not always lead to a better outcome. And in the end, you still have to kind of reconcile with that loss of control in order to truly psychologically be okay. So, you can bleach your hair blonde and it'll feel good for a couple weeks, but at some point, you're going to remember that you still don't have control over the larger situation.
And if you do bleach your hair blonde, we want to see a picture of it. Send it to TNW at twit.tv. We want to see your before and after shot.
Send us your pandemic hair. Not physically, please. Just digital photos of your pandemic hair. I don't want hair in the mail. Thank you.
No. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, fantastic read. I love your insight on it too, Mikah. So definitely everybody should check that out. And his first piece, which he links to in this, is very good too. So read that as well. As Douglas Rushkoff. We have reached the end of Tech News Weekly. We publish every Thursday this show at twit.tv/TNW. That's where you can go to subscribe to the show, find all the links to do so, link out to YouTube, whatever you like. It's all there waiting for you.
Yes. And if you do want to send us your pandemic haircuts, it's tnw@twit.tv, or hairstyles, or any other feedback that you want, tnw@twit.tv. Follow us on social media. We are at Twit on Twitter. That sounds like we are the Borg. Twit is at Twit on Twitter, at twit.tv on Instagram, at Twit Talk on TikTok, which may be sold at any moment. Let's see. Not the account, but the actual service. You can also tweet at me. I'm at Mikah Sargent on Twitter and at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media networks. I've got an episode of Hands on iOS coming out later today. It's all about the Notes app that's built right into your phone. You would be surprised how powerful that Notes app is. So if you've ever taken a look at Notes, but you think there might be more to it, you're absolutely right. And I show you kind of everything you need to know about the Notes app for iOS. What about you, Jason?
Nice. Sounds interesting. I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter. One of my other shows, Hands on Android, a new episode published today, twit.tv/HOA. I take the Pixel 4a, which is the $350 device, and I take the Note 20 Ultra, which is the $1,300 device, and I pit them against each other on a photo walk. I left the house with a face mask and a clipboard and a couple of phones and took photos on Monday, and then went back and compared them to see those two different price points. What do you get? And It's really interesting to see side by side just how close these camera systems are, considering the wide price gap between the two.
I really like that Pixel 4a photo next to the Note 20 Ultra.
I'm telling you, the 4A is an excellent camera. I mean, it has some, comparatively speaking, there are some downsides when compared to the Note 20 Ultra, but you're just going to have to watch to find out, Mikah. Okay.
I'm going to right after this.
/HOA. Big thanks to John Ashley at the studio for helping us with this show and our hands-on shows. Thank you, John. Thanks to Burke also, who's at the studio helping us. And thanks to you for watching and listening. We will see you next week on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Be sure to check out the other shows on the network, like my other show, Hands on Wellness. I love to share different tips and tricks that's going to help you get a better grasp on your personal wellness. Just go to twit.tv/how and subscribe now.